Here's a more challenging example on completing the square. Just like the last question, we have to make sure that we group together our first two terms that contain the x. Then we want to factor out that coefficient in front of the x squared. So we're going to factor out a 4. So when we factor out the 4, we're left with 4 and then bracket x squared minus 28 divided by 4 is 7. So 7x and then that minus 23 constant still kicking around. Now we have to go and consider this coefficient in front of the x. It's a 7. And what we have to do in completing the square is take half of 7. Half of 7 is 7 over 2. And then we're supposed to take half of that middle term and we're supposed to square it. So 7 halves squared is 49 over 4. So our next step would be to add that, but remaining it as a value of 0. So we'd say x squared minus 7x. Now we're going to add 49 over 4, and we're going to subtract 49 over 4, and now subtract 23, that constant out the back. Again, the reason for adding and subtracting the 49 fourths is to add a value of 0, so the value of this whole quadratic is never changing. Now we need to get this middle trinomial here. We want it to be a perfect square, which means I have to get rid of this. And the way to get rid of that, or to kick it out of the brackets, is to multiply it by that coefficient out front. So we're going to multiply it by the 4. So 4 times negative 49 over 4 gives me a negative 49. So out the back here, eventually we're going to kick out a negative 49. There's already a minus 23 out there. And then what we're left with is y equals 4 x squared minus 7x plus 49 over 4. So in essence, we've created a perfect square in the middle. Oops, not over x. This should be over 4. So in essence now, this trinomial in the brackets is a perfect square. So its factors are the same. And we talked yesterday because to factor that, some people have a little bit of a difficulty to do that. We said there is kind of a way to look at this. It's always going to end up here with some factor being squared. And then we could simplify these last two things out here. And that gets me negative 72. The quick sort of cheating way to factor this when we're completing the square, because it's a perfect square, is take the same variable, so x, take the same sign, so minus, take half of that, 7 over 2. So our final answer, if we were to rewrite it neater, is y equals 4 x minus 7 halves all squared minus 72, which lets us know that our vertex of this quadratic is 7 halves minus 72. So that puts it deep in quadrant 4, if we were to consider that, and this quadratic is opening up. So this point is a minimum.